Welcome to a new edition of the Famous Interviews with Joe Dimino. On this episode, we talk with best-selling author and podcast host Shaunna Lee. After nearly 20 years in corporate America and surviving 3 divorces, this mom of 4 founded a business that helps women fall in love and make more money. Using various modalities, they created a customized wellness plan. They set intentions and manifest success and empowerment. She offers one-on-one coaching, writes books, and hosts a podcast. She helps her clients align with who they truly are. Enjoy this interview.
It's great to meet you. Where are you coming out of?
I am based in Texas, pretty big state you might know of. I'm in Round Rock, which is just north of Austin.
Okay, wonderful. Yeah, Austin really grew quite a bit, huh?
Oh my gosh, so much, way too much, too soon, too fast.
Yeah, and there was a lot of places on the West Coast that did that. I remember when Seattle blew up and other cities, and it's crazy how that happens.
Yeah. My daughter is actually just outside of Seattle now, so we're familiar.
Yeah. Well, hey, it's great to meet you. And before we hop into your life and work and what motivates you, I want to know, living through COVID for the last 3 years was quite a thing. It really affected us all in its own way. How did you get through that time period? How has it changed the way that you do things now?
Well, I think I got through it the same way everyone else did, which was by the skin of my teeth. In the thick of the COVID days, I was actually schooling 3 children from home that were in 3 different grades in 3 different schools. It was an intense time. So I had already been a work from home person. What was new for me then was that I was trying to build a business. I was in the early stages of building my business to what it is today. So I was doing that while I was juggling a bunch of kids at home and trying to, keep their sense of normal the same. Luckily for me, what really helped was I had honed in on a morning routine for myself before all of this kind of happened. So I already knew that meditation and journaling was like a key element for me to just get my ducks in a row before a day started. And that really was instrumental. And it's 2 tiny little things, but it really, really helped me.
So let's get to the exact essence of what you do on a daily basis. I'm going to put you in front of a bunch of 3rd graders at a career day. And one of the kids looks up at you and says, "Hey, what do you do for a living?" How do you answer that child?
Well, first I would say I'm an entrepreneur, and I would explain what that is, that I have started my own business and I work for myself, and that I do it from home. If I am talking to my 5th grader, which I just explained to her, she asked me this very question the other day, "Mom, what do you do?" I actually record my podcast in my closet. So she walked in and said, "What do you do in here?" And so I sat her down and I opened up the application that I use and I kind of walked her through the process, and I said, "So what do you think?" She goes, "Well, it's kind of weird, but I like it. You just talk to people?" And I said, "Yep, I have conversations all day. I record them and then I share them with everybody else so they can hear them." And so that is what really is the bulk of my podcasting. And then the other side of what I do is I'm a writer. So I have a best-selling book, So You're Divorced, So What? And all of my writing is really geared towards helping the same group of people that my podcast reaches. And that is to help women primarily, but people after divorce kind of rebuild their life and start something new again.
And that's so necessary, and that's such a great and noble thing, because there's a lot of people that are just lost after that process and trying to pick everything back up.
Totally.
So talk to me a little bit about what you wanted to be when you grew up in the 3rd grade. What was your dream?
Oh, gosh. Well, in 3rd grade, I thought my only options were to be a teacher or maybe a doctor, but it was all these really stereotypical traditional roles that I thought were the only option. And then by the time I got to about high school, I started dreaming a little bit bigger for myself, but I really wanted to be a fashion designer at one point. And I would say it was probably towards the end of high school to my early adult years when I finally started feeling the nudge to become a writer. so it took me about 20 years to pay attention to that nudge and actually start writing for a profession. But, the early days, they were all kind of varied. I've always wanted to do a bunch of different things.
So let's kind of get to the essence of what made you a writer, a podcaster, someone that's helping people get through difficult situations in their life. Take me back to your childhood, where you were born and raised, and how these seeds were put into you to be creative and to be someone that helps others.
Well, it's interesting because I had a fairly tumultuous childhood. I grew up in South Austin before Austin was cool. Everyone is moving here now, but back in the day, it was not the cool place to grow up. And so I had a very meager upbringing, and I would say creativity was, conditioned out of me like everybody else through school. But it was kind of my lifeline, and I remember different elements of having and touching into that creativity, whether it was, creating Barbie clothes or fashioning Barbie furniture out of the wood chips that we found, on a home building site. Like, it just was always, creativity was an element of what I was doing. But in terms of writing, I really fought that one and probably didn't actually start paying attention to that until I lost my second corporate job. I was in my mid-40s and really tapped back into writing as a way to process what I was going through.
So what was the first book that you ever read in your life that really opened up the doors and made you want to read more? Something that you fell in love with that maybe you still revisit?
I actually haven't revisited it. I'm not there are so many books out there that I don't typically reread a book. The very first book that really touched me was a love story. And the story behind it's less about the book and it's more about how I came to find the book. So I was a 16-year-old visiting my grandmother in California. I had a new boyfriend for the first time and was just lovesick about the idea of leaving him for an entire week that felt like an eternity. And my grandmother, she actually had 10 children, and so I'm sure she could hone in on where I was in my life. And she walked me over to her bookshelf and said, "These are all my books. You can read whichever one you want, however many of them you would like." And I perused the bookshelf and came to a love story because that really touched me at where I was in my life. And that was probably the first book that I thought, oh, maybe I could write a book someday. And then, of course, it took me a while to come back to that. But that was the first one, and I probably should go back and reread it.
That's a great story. So in your life of finding inspiration, who's been kind of a hero for you?
Well, so the same woman I just talked about. My grandmother really was the first example I had of going out and doing something that looked impossible. So she was a single mom of 10, put herself through college and got her bachelor's degree later in life. And I thought, for that point forward, I thought, if she can go back to school and get a college degree, there is nothing stopping me. And so that became a minimum expectation for my life. So then fast forward, when I find myself a pregnant teenager, a senior in high school, that idea of going to college became even more incrementally difficult. And so it was always in the back of my mind that if she can do it, I can do it. And I think that's what really catapulted me to actually finishing my education and, being a college graduate with 2 children by that point. It took me a while to get there, but she really was my first hero in terms of showing me what was capable in the odds of it looking impossible.
So as a podcast host, who would be a dream interview for you? If you could meet anybody on the planet, interview them, spend time with them, who would it be?
Oh my gosh, without a doubt, it would be Oprah. Like, don't even hesitate to know that is my top dream. I'm going to say when I have the opportunity to speak with Oprah directly, I will have made it in my mind. She is such an incredible woman, and her story is inspiring, and I just cannot get over the amount of good that she does in the world, and what she's made of her life. She's amazing. I would love to meet her.
So talk to me a little bit about, you're helping people get through, that divorce period in their lives, a very difficult situation. In your personal narrative, how did you get through that? What was the story? How did you rebound and find yourself?
Well, that's the funny thing because, funny, not funny. I have actually been divorced 3 times, and I tell people I have experienced every aspect of divorce that there is. The World War III toxic, chaotic version all the way to the most amicable version and everything in between. I have been the one to leave. I have been the one who has left. Every scenario of divorce I have experienced. And at first, and for a long time, it actually was a great source of shame and guilt. And it took me a long time to work through that. And so, one thing leads to another, leads to another. I have put the pieces together. And so my goal of writing that book was that I was going to be able to help somebody go through that process faster than I did. I think that it doesn't necessarily need to take years and years and years to prepare your heart to fall in love again, or to have the bravery to start a new business, or whatever the big dream is that most people have kind of put on the back burner during a marriage, especially if you get to the point where your marriage is on the rocks. Everything else kind of goes by the wayside. And so I really just want to help people get through that process faster and smoother and easier than I did.
So as somebody that helps others, you're giving a lot of yourself. What's your daily motivation? What gets you out of bed? What gets you to want to help people and to accomplish what you want to get done in a day?
Well, that's a really good question. I think for the majority of my life, so I've been a mom since the age of 18, so most of my life I've been a mom. And that on, the majority of days is what is my driving force. They are the reason I do anything that I do. I want to set a good example for my children. I want to provide a good life for them. I want to give them better than I had growing up. All of these ways that we want to be a good parent, that is usually my initial inspiration. It quickly became, or actually not quickly, it eventually became that I wanted to leave a legacy for them, and I wanted to build something that they could be proud of, that they could join a part of if they wanted to. I really wanted to leave something bigger than I just was a great mom, which is not to minimize what it takes to be a great mom. So my kids, for the most part, are what drive me and motivate me, and they give me, perspective and priority and all that good stuff. But beyond that, my goal to help people, I think, is fundamentally a part of my soul and who I am beyond this human person. And I think that is me touching into the collective of all of humanity, how we're more connected than we are separate. And the idea of helping one another, I think, is what is at the basis of us really being unified.
And that's a perfect segue into my next question. What's been one of your best client success stories that you just always puts a smile on your face?
Oh, that's a good question. I think it's going to be a combination of a few of them. So my absolute, I'm great at helping someone start a business or write a book or do any of these really tactical things. But my favorite success stories are the ones where a woman has come out of a divorce and she has hardened her heart. She doesn't think that she will ever fall in love again. And I walk her through the process to get ready to do that and then ultimately meet her person. I think those are my favorite stories because it's the biggest transition of that person. What it takes to get her to go through that process and to actually meet her person is the most fun.
So of all of the things that you've been through and done and accomplished and seen, what are you the proudest of that you've done in your life?
it's not any one thing that I've accomplished, writing and publishing a book, having it become a bestseller. That's amazing. I think the thing I'm most proud of is my resilience and my drive to keep going, my ability to get back up when I have, quote unquote, failed or made a mistake, or, life handed me lemons is what I usually say. My ability to take that, learn a lesson, and move forward and let it catapult me into something better is what I'm most proud of.
So let's say you have a dream tonight. You run into yourself, around, I would say probably senior year, early 20s, and you could give that version of you a piece of advice based on the wisdom that you've gained living up to this point in your life. What would you tell your young version?
I love this question. I actually ask it of all my guests on my podcast as well. I would tell that timid, scared little girl to be bold and take risks and stop worrying about what everybody else thinks, to have more faith in your opinion and trust your gut and go do bold things.
So if you right now could go back in time and witness any event in human history, what's the most fascinating to you? What would you love to have seen firsthand?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know that I've ever given thought to that. I would say I've got a lot of things coming to mind that I would never want to witness firsthand. I don't know that I have dramatized or romanticized much of our history. What would I want to witness? It would be something around women gaining more rights. Women, I don't know that it would be the right to vote necessarily. I would want to witness oh gosh.
I think you may have answered it. I think you may have.
Yeah, I think
that makes sense.
Well, hopefully that gives you a great answer, but it really would be something around watching women understand how powerful they are, and the moment that any one woman in our history has said, oh my gosh, I have the power to change this.
So, Shaunna, everyone out there has a perception of you. There's all these pockets of people in your life, family, friends, clients, colleagues, but you run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
Oh, well, I know that I am compassionate and nurturing, and that I truly care about individuals and humanity as a whole. I am someone who has high expectations because I know what people are capable of.
So this is the most important thing at this point. Where can people go to listen to your podcast, pick up your book, anything pertaining to your world? Where is the best place to go?
Yes, well, I am simply Shaunna Lee on all of the socials, and my website is ShaunnaLee.com. You can find my book, So You're Divorced, So What? And any of my things are on my website, but my book is on Amazon. It's available in print and audio. My podcast is Start Again with Shaunna Lee, and you can find that anywhere that you listen to podcasts.
Excellent, Shaunna. This has been wonderful. Thank you so much for opening up, and what you're giving to the world and what you're helping people through is so vital and important. So thank you for opening up and giving me your story. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to another famous interview with Joe Dimino, where we cover the world of art, literature, business, spirituality, music, and more from around the globe. Our esteemed theme music was composed and produced by the great E.E. Pointer of Kansas City's River Cow Orchestra. If you want to hear more interviews, visit the Famous Interviews with Joe Dimino channel on YouTube. You can also find us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Thanks again for listening, and until next time.